Okay, so continuing part 8, the nacelles, the nacelle pylons, we're going to move on to the starboard side. I did, in my last video, I did the port side. You can see how that came out. And we're going to move on to the starboard side. Basically going to be the same thing that we did to the port side. You see all the nice detail in that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to wash it in some degreasing agent, dish detergent. Get that film off. Okay, so I went ahead and I washed them. They're nice and smooth. You could tell because it doesn't have that kind of that greasy feel to them. It helped the primer stick. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make it so that we can pass wires through. So like I did in the previous video, I'm going to notch out little areas so we can pass the wires in. Okay, so I made the holes, and when you're drilling this you're going to be very careful because the plastic isn't really that thick. You just got to make sure that you don't go through the sides. This is going to be to pass the wires through. You can see when you do it, obviously don't glue it. You can see the channels where the wires are going to pass through. And when that's all set, of course when it's finished you can drill it out a little bit more later when you actually pass the wires through. So what we're going to do now is we're going to prime them. Okay, so give them a nice coat of primer. And again, I'm not going to do the insides, I'm only going to do the outside because they're not going to be lit. So now we can go ahead and give them the finish coat of the Rust-Oleum. Okay, so they got a nice coat of paint on them, and they've had some time to cure. There's a couple little areas that I'll sand. You can see that side, and see the inside part. Again, the detail is so nice on these. So let's move on, and we're going to go to the gluing. Okay, so I'm ready to glue the two pieces together. And I'm using the crazy glue because, well, this is going to be a pretty solid model. I'm hoping there's a lot of weight for it, and I want to get everything nice and solid. So let's go ahead. I'm going to glue the pieces together, and then I'm going to clamp it. And I'll show you guys what it looks like when it's ready to for us to move on to the next step. Okay, so I took the clamps off. It's all dry and it's all set. It's nice and solid, and we're going to begin by masking it off, and I'm going to paint the vents, the exhaust vents, and I'm going to put it the blue. Let's see if you can see that, the dark blue, paint number 1111, just like I did for the port side. Okay, so I wrapped it in a paper towel. I masked off the areas, the vents. I guess this would be the probably the intake vent, and this would be the exhaust vents. I'm not sure, but anyway, they're ready to paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on very light layers and dry them, as opposed to putting on all of it at once. And I'll start by doing the edges to make sure that it's sealed and it doesn't leak into the area that's masked. So let's start painting. I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Alright, so we painted. Actually, I put on, let's see, 4 or 5 thin coats. Got it nice and even. And it's all set to take off the mask. I'll take it off and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so I took the masks off. And you can see it's nice and even. With that done, we're all set now. We can start putting the masks on for the little lightning bolts and doing the Aztecing. Okay, so we went ahead and I put the tape or the frisket on. Well, actually, let me tell you the whole process. You weed it first, reveal the little lightning bolts, and what you do is you put the frisket or the tape over it, and then you cut out the shapes. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to peel off the back, and then we're going to apply it to the actual model. So I'm going to take the backs off, and I'm going to apply it to the model, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all applied. Okay, so I took the backs off and I applied the masks onto the part. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to carefully remove the tape or the frisket, and then it'll be ready to start painting. Okay, so I removed the tape or the frisket, and again, it's a very delicate thing, and it's all set to start painting. I'm going to airbrush on. First I'm going to do the gold, then I'm going to do the red, and I'm going to do the green. And each color that I'll do, I'll put a little mark just to remind me that I've done that area already. And when it's all painted, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I got another mistake to tell you guys about to make sure that you don't do. When I had painted the vents, I used the dark blue. Well, what I did was when I cleaned the gun, I cleaned it until it came out clear. My mistake was when I put a few drops of the thinner in, and I put in the gold, I sprayed it out. It came out gold at first, and then all of a sudden it turned more blue was coming out of the gun. So I messed it up, and it's actually blue, and I'm not going to know how this looks until I take the masks off. At first I was like, well, you know, I like blue, and there's blue in the Aztecing, and then I remembered that there's no blue on the Nacelle Pylons. So this is a mistake that you guys should learn from. Always make sure your paint gun is absolutely spotless. Like I said, it came out clear, and then I started to spray the gold, and as soon as I put it on the plastic, it started to come out blue. And I'm like, well, you know, I like blue, but oh boy. Yep, it's a mistake, and I didn't want to rub it off, and so I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to live with it, and I'm going to see how it looks when the masks are off. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to let it dry. Once the paint is all dry, I'm going to remove the masks, and at that point we can move on to the decals. Alright, I took the masks off, and you can see the blue is very, very noticeable. And it actually looks more like the Enterprise A than the refit, because the Enterprise A has more blue in it, but gonna have to live with this the way it is. And go ahead now, I'm gonna paint the front and the back and show you guys what that looks like when it's masked. Okay, so it's all masked off and it's ready to paint. And I'm going to be using the Duck Egg Model Master to spray it on. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, so I just gave it 2 coats. And I'm going to let it dry. And when that's dry, then we'll paint the insides of those panels on either side. Okay, so I took off the mask, and you can see it's nice and crisp. Looks good. So now we're able to go on and move on to the step of painting the little indentations on the inside. What I do is I mask off the edges, so if the paintbrush hits the edges it won't leave a mark, and do the inside. It's a big piece, but the little channels are pretty narrow, if you can see in there. So I'll mask them off and give them a paint, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Alright, I took off the masks. I showed you in the pictures. To make a long story short, the blue I couldn't leave it the way it was, so I remasked it. I repainted it white, and I put more of the Aztec paint on. And I feel crazy, but it still looks blue. It looks blue until you kind of turn it around, and then you can see the green and the red and the gold. Anyway, I I didn't feel comfortable leaving it the way it was, and I think it looks a little bit better now. So now I can go ahead and move on to the decals. Okay, so I put all the decals on. Well, there weren't really that much on the bottom, just a couple of the little dot ones. Decals on, it looked nice. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do like I did for the other Nacelle Pylon. I'm going to do a coat of the clear, a nice clear coat to keep everything in place and protected. And I'll show you what that looks like when that's finished. Alright, so I put the protectant on. I put on one good coat. Incidentally, the protectant clear coat that I use, I actually use Pledge Floor Care. It comes out to a nice shine, and it's got a good protection. I use this for all my models. I did the Enterprise 1350 50th anniversary for the original series, and I did it with the Pledge, and it came out really good, and it's protected because you're going to put all this work into these models, and they got really tiny little decals. You don't want anything to come off. And if you don't have a display case, you can put them in. They're going to get dusty, and you want to be able to dust them off without, you know, how it can be where you clean things off, the decals end up coming off, and this is just a way to protect it, to keep it always looking like it did when you finished it. You can see the coat is just about dry, so everything is protected. The paint is protected, the little lightning bolts, the tiny little decals. Let me show you the other side. Now once the ship is assembled, the final assembly, I'm going to give it one more final coat. So 2 coats of the Pledge that I'll put on ultimately, but I'm only going to put one for the parts as I do them individually. Then I'll be able to give it a final coat when it's all assembled. Incidentally, the products that I used for this, I used the Inspire, the Pearl Red, the Pearl Green, and the Pearl Gold. I used Microsol for the decals, and for the Duck Egg Blue, the Model Master, and the Dark Blue from the testers. And that being said, the starboard side Nacelle Pylon is all done. We're ready to move on. And as usual, thank you so much for all the kind comments, and thank you for watching my video.